Ever feel like world politics is a bit of a poker game? Well, today we're flipping the table and reading Vladimir Putin's tell.
Yeah, we're calling a big bluff.
We're going all in on James Berryhill's Putin, a psychopathological portrait.
Deep dive time.
This isn't just headlines and hot takes. We're going deeper. This book gets into the mind of the man, and
It's a fascinating read. Disturbing,
yeah,
but insightful.
Berryhill doesn't hold back. Right out of the gate, he says, at the core of Putin is this need, this driving force power.
Or not just power, like, I want to be in charge of power. It's deeper. It's about being seen as superior.
Dominating.
Exactly. Control.
Yeah.
Think about his background, KGB. That leaves a mark.
Yeah, you don't rise through those ranks by being Mr. Nice Guy. But come on, he's running Russia. Nuclear codes. Isn't that the ultimate power trip?
You'd think so, right? But this isn't just ambition. It's a psychological need. Like, he needs to be top dog, constantly proving it.
Like that time he made Angela Merkel wait while he, played with his dog or something.
Exactly. Every interaction, every photo op, it's calculated. All about dominance.
Even those pics of him, shirtless on a horse, that's not an accident.
Oh, absolutely staged. Projecting an image. Strength. Vitality. Control.
The alpha male routine.
Exactly. And part of that is this thing Berryhill talks about, discipline. Putin's obsessed with order. Rules.
Likes things a certain way. Huh?
More than that, he sees order as safety, security. Anyone steps out of line.
They're a threat.
Threat to his whole world.
And that's where things get a little, let's say, interesting. Because who decides what those rules are anyway? And what happens when they're broken?
That's where we get into the really good stuff. Because Putin's relationship with rules, let's just say, it's complicated.
Okay, so back to Putin and rules. This is where things stop feeling like a town hall meeting and start feeling like, I don't know, Game of Thrones or something.
Yeah, the stakes get a lot higher. And Berryhill really dives into this, the way Putin views rules. On one hand, yeah, he needs them, craves order, but he also
Bends them.
breaks them. When it suits him, it's like he thinks he's playing by a different set of rules, above it all.
Four-dimensional chess.
Putin's playing 4D chess, the rest of us are using checkers. Berryhill calls it, bending the rules for success, I think.
Catchy.
Basically, winning is everything. Doesn't matter how you get there. Crimea, for example. Not exactly following the rule book there.
Okay, but lots of leaders push boundaries. What makes Putin different?
Remember that whole them and us thing? It's central to how he operates. Berryhill argues, Putin sees the world in two camps. You're either with him or you're against him.
No gray area.
Nope. No compromise. And if you're in the against column, watch out. Journalists silenced, opponents jailed. Doesn't mess around.
It's starting to sound like a spy novel.
Well, he was KGB, right? It shaped him. Berryhill suggests that for Putin, force isn't just a last resort. It's a tool, a way to release something, disturbing stuff.
Not just armies and weapons, but the threat of force too, right?
Absolutely. Intimidation. Keeps people off balance. Think about his whole vibe towards the West, those little hints about nukes.
Not exactly subtle.
All part of the plan. Projecting strength. This idea that he'll do whatever it takes and protect Russia, to make Russia great again the way he sees it.
It's about more than just power then. It's about respect. Being seen a certain way.
100%. And that need for respect, it's tied up with all sorts of stuff going on under the surface. Insecurities, anxieties, deep stuff that Berryhill really gets into.
We're really getting into the weeds here, huh? Trying to untangle the roots of Putin's psyche.
It's fascinating stuff, though. We talked about power, about rules, but the really juicy stuff, it's about what's happening under the surface, internally.
Inside Putin's head. What makes him tick? Give me the Cliff's Notes version. What's his motivation?
So Berryhill argues that early on it was about security. Making Russia strong again after the Soviet Union fell apart. He felt that loss deeply.
Trying to rebuild the motherland.
Right. But over time, it shifted. Became less about Russia, more about Putin himself, his legacy, how he'd be remembered.
Ego.
Kind of, yeah. He wants to be seen as this larger-than-life figure, a great leader. And that need, it creates conflict because he's pulled between this desire for personal greatness and the image of himself as Russia's savior.
And that tension, that conflict, it manifests in, everything, the way he acts on the world stage.
Exactly. It's the root of his need for validation, the aggression, the posturing. It all comes back to this fear of being seen as weak, insignificant.
Insecure. Doesn't seem like the right word for a guy who invades countries and makes nuclear threats.
And that's where another piece of the puzzle comes in: resentment. Berryhill argues that Putin is driven in part by a deep well of anger. He feels like Russia has been wronged, humiliated,
Yeah.
the collapse of the Soviet Union, NATO expanding eastward.
He's holding on to that.
It's fuel for the fire. It's how he justifies his actions. He sees himself as righting historical wrongs. And that brings us to what Berryhill calls the 20 dark factors.
This is the part where I start to get creeped out.
It's dark stuff. Dominance, narcissism, even sadism. Berryhill doesn't shy away from it.
He's saying Putin has psychopathic tendencies.
He lays out a very compelling case, yeah. He points to Putin's lack of empathy, his willingness to manipulate, to inflict suffering. It's all there.
So what's the takeaway? After spending all this time with Putin, inside his head, what do we do with this information?
That's the million-dollar question. Berryhill gives us a framework for understanding Putin, but also this chilling question. Are we dealing with a calculating strategist or someone driven by forces we can barely comprehend? And how do you even begin to deal with that? I think that's something we all have to sit with.
Yeah, something to think about.